Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom. I'm David Mencer, spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the Prime Minister's office. It's Thursday, July 3rd, day 636 since the October 7th atrocities. Please put your questions in the chat of this Zoom with your name and outlet, and we'll take your questions just after a very few points to share with you. If there are problems with putting the questions in the Zoom, please let us know somehow. But there shouldn't be a problem, as there has been in the past, I understand. Okay, firstly, we open today with deep sorrow bearing the weight of the most painful news, the loss of a courageous soldier. Since the war began, 881 IDF heroes have fallen. These aren't just statistics, they're not just faceless names. Each one was a life filled with promise, a future stolen, a world unto themselves. Sergeant Yaniv Mikhailovich was 19 years old and from Rehovot. He fell in battle in northern Gaza. There are no words of mine that can assuage the grief of his parents or the heartbreak felt by his family, his friends and his community. The pain of losing a child is beyond comprehension, and tragically it is one too many Israeli families have now endured. We may not have the words to ease their pain, but we offer the full support and solidarity of the State of Israel, and a nation mourns with them. This war was not of our choice, but defending our homeland has come at a heartbreaking cost. The lives of our bravest sons and daughters, each fallen soldier leaves a silence in their home and a scar on our national soul. May the memory of Sergeant Mikhailovich and of all of our fallen heroes be a source of strength, pride, and eternal blessing. Okay, I'm just reading here regarding the questions that the main chat is disabled. So I think it's being sorted out, right? It's being sorted out. Okay, good. Next, the Prime Minister will leave next week for meetings in the US with President Donald Trump. This visit comes in the wake of the significant victory Israel and the US have achieved in Operation Rising Lion. Capitalizing on that success is no less significant than securing it in the first place. I can share with you that the Prime Minister is due to meet alongside the President, Vice President Vance, Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and the President's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and the Commerce Secretary regarding a trade agreement. There will also be meetings with leaders in Congress and with leaders in the Senate, in addition to security meetings. Now, this will be an unprecedented third prime ministerial visit that Prime Minister Netanyahu has made to Washington to meet President Trump. I can tell you this is more than any other world leader since Trump's return to office. That fact alone speaks volumes, and it underscores the strategic depth of the US-Israel alliance, the personal rapport between the two leaders, between the two administrations, and no less the urgency of the shared agenda that they're driving forward. So whether it's confronting Iran or freeing hostages or reshaping Gaza or expanding the Abraham Accords, this is not just diplomacy as usual. This is leadership in real time. In just 6 months, 3 White House meetings, that is not business as usual. That's two nations aligned, acting decisively, and building a new regional order together. Next, allow me to update you on the humanitarian aid situation in Gaza. This week, the IDF reorganized access routes to humanitarian aid distribution centers in Gaza. Why? To ensure safe civilian movement, orderly aid delivery, and uninterrupted operational activity. Now, this adjustment has followed an internal review, which has been aimed at reducing friction with the local population and also improving aid flow. Hamas, as we know, continues to obstruct direct humanitarian assistance. They continue to attempt to loot aid, loot trucks, and put Gazans' lives at risk in a deliberate effort to starve their own people. In contrast, Israel, via the IDF, is facilitating the operation of aid distribution through aid distribution points and enables the entry of trucks through international partners. That means that food, medicine, essential goods, and medical teams continue to enter Gaza under Israeli coordination. Now, the IDF takes extensive measures to avoid civilian harm. Of course we do. And we also try to ensure that aid reaches Gazans themselves that need it and is not diverted to Hamas, who sell the aid, enrich themselves, and then extort money from not only traders, but also from Gazans themselves. This aid is supposed to be given to Gazans that need it for free. It is an outrage that Hamas have been charging their own people for this aid, but we are getting them out of the equation. So there is certainly no deliberate targeting of civilians, and these claims are categorically false. And any exceptional incidents where they have happened are investigated thoroughly and then addressed. Okay, that's our last part of my briefing today. Now I will take your questions. Okay, first question here I can see is from Maria Finoshina from Russia Today. You're the Middle East Bureau Chief. Good afternoon, David. Could you please clarify what exactly Israel has said yes to regarding the reported 60-day ceasefire deal? President Trump stated that Israel accepted the necessary conditions, and Foreign Minister Saar said that Israel said yes to Special Envoy Witkoff's proposal. Has Israel officially approved the current draft agreement, or is the deal still pending cabinet approval and not yet formally endorsed by the Israeli government? Thank you for your question, Maria. Maria, I can tell you that, if I may say, Maria, your question is really back to front, because at every single stage of this conflict, it has always been Israel that has been agreeing to these Witkoff proposals in particular. And before that, during the Biden administration, Israel was always trying our hardest, even when it was painful, to get our hostages out. And more often than not, it was Hamas that were always walking away. So it is Hamas that have been constantly walking away. Now, these negotiations are ongoing, but what I can share with you is that Prime Minister Netanyahu is working to end the campaign in Gaza through the release of the hostages and the defeat of the Hamas terrorist organization as soon as possible. As soon as possible. The obstacle, as ever, lies with Hamas, but we are working through various means to overcome that. Okay? Okay, so that's your question. Next question here from David Clement from the News Forum in Canada. The government has said that since the start of the war, the future of Gaza cannot include Hamas, but reports on the ceasefire framework give the impression that Hamas can remain in Gaza. Can you address this discrepancy? Thank you for that question, David. I don't believe that there is a discrepancy there. Let me share with you what, as I said to you, the Prime Minister has said, and I've shared this with you, that we're working to end the campaign in Gaza through the release of hostages and the defeat of Hamas as soon as possible. The obstacle lies with Hamas, but we are working through that as ever. But what I can share, also in addition share with you, is that Hamas is a terrorist organization, and the Prime Minister said there will be no more Hamas. He said this very clearly just yesterday, I believe. There'll be no Hamas-stan. There'll be no more going back to what we've done before. That every 2-year conflict, it's over. The Prime Minister said very clearly, we will free all of our hostages. And just as your question put to me just now, question whether these objectives are in some way contradictory, the Prime Minister said very, very clearly that we will complete this together. Contrary to what is being said, Hamas will be eliminated down to its very foundations, the Prime Minister said. Now, we here in Israel, led by the Prime Minister, believe there is a huge opportunity here, both in our defeat of our enemies and also with the to ensure that with nations now coming to us to try and initiate peace agreements, peace through strength. First comes the strength, as the Prime Minister said, then comes the peace. We're going to ensure our economic, national and international security for our combined future, for the betterment of this country and all the people that live in this region. So I don't believe that there is a discrepancy, David. Thank you. Okay, next question, please, is from Lior Soroka from the Washington Post. This looks like being the last question until anyone else asks a question. And your question from the Washington Post, Lior Soroka, can you comment on reports that fuel is running out in Gaza, whether Israel has, if you can just go back to that question, sorry I didn't finish it, there we go. Fuel is running out in Gaza and whether Israel has not allowed fuel in recently. Thank you for that question, Lior. I haven't got anything to add on that. I would recommend that you would go through to Kogat, who will be able to answer that particular question. I mean, what I can say to you is that there is a concerted effort to frustrate aid going to ordinary Gazans. I'm not mentioning fuel in particular. I would encourage all of the journalists on this call to just take a look at what the Gaza Health Humanitarian Foundation have been putting out recently, especially their leader, Reverend Johnny Moore Jr. Just look at the things which they are saying, that they have supplied 54 million meals to Gazan civilians. 54 million meals. I would encourage you to look at some of the posts they're putting on Twitter about how Hamas has tried everything they can to frustrate them, to threaten Gazans that try to get food from GHF, to put obstacles in their way, to shoot them. For Hamas to physically shoot Gazans to stop them getting food. Reverend Johnny Moore, he lamented that he's in Europe right now. He now needs a bodyguard, even while in Europe, because Hamas are obviously trying their hardest to frustrate the efforts of GHF getting food to ordinary Gazans, and they know that this is the last crutch which they have to stand up on. That they use the money from the aid that they extort from Gaza's people to pay for more terrorism. And that is why Israel, together with our allies, has instituted the efforts to create the Gaza Health Foundation to get food and supplies and medical supplies and everything needed to Gazan civilians and not to the Hamas terrorist organization. Okay, next question, please. Mimi Sawabi. Mimi, if you could just share with me your news outlet, and then we'll be happy to take your question. Next question, Howard Goller from Reuters. What are Israel's expectations for Prime Minister's meetings at the White House? Do they include a deal for a ceasefire and the release of hostages? Thank you for that question, Howard. In this briefing, I think I was pretty clear on the purpose of our visit. The Prime Minister is leaving for Washington, D.C. next week. This is in the wake, of course, of our significant victory that the US and Israel achieved in Operation Rising Lion, and we're capitalizing on that success, and we believe that that success is no less significant than securing that success, but also capitalizing on that success. I've told you already that that the Prime Minister Netanyahu will be meeting with Vice President Vance, together with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, together with Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, together with Steve Witkoff, the President's envoy to the Middle East, and the Commerce Secretary, and congressional leaders and Senate leaders, and also security meetings as well. The Prime Minister has made clear that we wish to bring the war in Gaza to an end as soon as possible to get back our hostages. It is Hamas, as ever, who is continuing to drag their feet. Now, that has been said by every single one of the negotiators, every single time. You don't have to take my word for it. You can just talk to the negotiators themselves, be they American or whoever. It is always Hamas, the terrorist organization, because they are jihadis that don't want the best for their people, hold on to our hostages. 20 of them are still alive. They need to release them right now, and lay down their arms, and there will be immediate cessation of all fighting in Gaza. Next question, please. You're from BBC News, Mimi Sawabi. You're asking me about someone called Dr. Marwan Sultan, and you're saying he was a target of a strike in the Al-Baka Cafe. Thank you, Mimi. I don't have any information on that at all. You can always, before these briefings, pass on information, pass on questions like that, and I can research, but I haven't got any information to share with you on that. I will say, seeing as it's a question from the BBC, who unfortunately have a rotten record when it comes to Gaza, The BBC refuses to call Hamas a terrorist organisation. That is an international outrage. The BBC have paid for a documentary to produce featuring Hamas family members and then try to pass it off as some sort of impartial documentary. The BBC have unfortunately lied when it comes to reporting from Gaza, because they said that there was 500 people killed very early on in this war at the Ali hospital, when in fact it was in single digits or very low numbers, and it was a Islamic Jihad rocket that did the damage. So look, the BBC unfortunately have a very, very bad record. You take Hamas's word for it. Hamas is a terrorist organisation. The BBC does not call Hamas a terrorist organisation. We are only left here in Israel with the only conclusion that you do not believe it is a terrorist organisation. But we know exactly what it is. They're jihadis, and that is why we have spent the last 20 months putting pressure on Hamas to free Gazans from the terrorist organisation and get our hostages home. Now, I don't know about this incident that you're sharing with me. Let me just see that was not the question. It was whether he was a target or not, and who was the target at the Al-Baka Cafe. Again, if you want that information, then I encourage you to call the IDF, and they can share that information with you if it has been declassified. I will say to you that Israel never targets civilians, while Hamas, on the other hand, rely and actually want civilian casualties. That is their aim in this war, to get more civilian casualties. But they have failed. As our Prime Minister has said, there will be no more Hamas. There will be no more Hamas stand. We're not going back to that. It's over. We will free all of our hostages. And we believe that we are very close to getting to that objective. Okay. Next question from Melanie Lidman at AP. What is the government's response to AP's report that indicates that GHF contractors guarding aid sites are shooting live ammo and stun grenades on the sites? And can you confirm that GHF and IDF work together and share intelligence? Thank you for that question, Melanie. I haven't got anything further to add. I have seen those reports, but I haven't got anything further to add. Obviously, Israel does not want any harm to Gazan civilians. They are victims of the Hamas terrorist organization as well. So that's certainly our objective. That is why Israel is facilitating. That's what we are doing. We are facilitating aid to go into Gaza. And I've shared with you some of the new ways we are doing that to decrease friction with Gazans and to get aid directly to people without it being diverted by the Hamas terrorist organization. Okay, next question here is from Bel Drew from The Independent. There's been a lot of messaging from the Israeli government. This is what you're saying, that you're expecting or want Palestinians to leave Gaza and aim to facilitate that. Is the plan to encourage, coerce Palestinians to leave Gaza or to move population south? Is the plan to maintain a long-term, if not permanent, Israeli presence in the north of Gaza? Thank you for that question, Bell. Look, let me answer you this way. In the last visit the Prime Minister made to Washington, D.C., where he met with President Trump in February, President Trump shared with the world his plan for the future of Gaza. President Trump has made clear that that plan is most definitely still active. He made those comments in the last day or so. And we here in Israel believe that allowing Gazans to voluntarily leave Gaza for safer countries is Gazans' rights. And we don't understand here in Israel why the war between Israel and Hamas is the only war in the world where it is, we are getting pressure from the outside world to keep innocent Gazans in place. No, the international community. As your question intimates, Bell, you say that the Gazans must stay in this war zone. They must not leave. They must stay there. Why should they stay there? Why is this conflict the only conflict in the world where civilians are not allowed to escape? Why can't they go to Egypt, a fellow Muslim country? Why is that not allowed to happen? Why don't you ask me a question about pressure on Egypt to allow Gazans to go there to seek freedom and safety from this war? We have talked about voluntary Gazans leaving of their own volition, and we believe that there are hundreds and thousands of Gazans that wish to leave. Why do you ask me a question that seeks to demonize Israel about whether that Gazans should stay in this war zone? Now, President Trump and Steve Witkoff, they are both in their former lives property developers, and the international experts have said that to rebuild Gaza from the mess which Hamas created this war because they hid themselves underneath civilian infrastructure. Rebuilding Gaza will take 15 to 20 years. That is the experts' view. Why on earth should Gazans continue to live in those conditions if there is an opportunity for them to seek sanctuary elsewhere? We think it's a good idea. The Prime Minister has praised the idea. It's certainly out of the box thinking. And you know what, Bell? Einstein was the person that said that repeating the same thing again and again and expecting a different outcome is the first sign of insanity. We believe that withdrawing from Gaza and then just allowing Hamas to regroup, to rebuild themselves and attack us again, as they say they wish to do, is simply not an option. After October the 7th, Israel has a different attitude, and we will not allow this country to be sitting right meters away from a jihadi terrorist organization that says at every opportunity that they wish to destroy this country and try their hardest to do it. Okay, next question, please. And your question from Howard Goller from Reuters: what's the Prime Minister's response to the call by Likud party ministers to annex the Judea and Samaria, as you call it, the West Bank, before the Knesset recess at the end of the month? Thank you for that question, Howard. I haven't got anything to add to that. The Prime Minister's position when it comes to Judea and Samaria, and this government's position when it comes to Judea and Samaria, has been set out very, very clearly, repeated many, many times, has not changed. You call it Israeli occupied. These are disputed territories rather than you calling it Israeli occupied. And ultimately, it has been the Palestinians that have consistently rejected every single peace offer. Every single peace offer, they have said no, again and again and again. No matter what the Prime Minister in Israel, from the left or from the right, they have rejected every single opportunity to get peace here. So really your question, I think, is probably better put to the Palestinian Authority, who reject every peace opportunity. Okay, let's take the last question. Was that the last question? That was the last question. Okay, so thank you for your questions. You can contact us in the usual way while the Prime Minister is in Washington, D.C. and the US for interview, for comment. And in the meantime, please do stay safe, and we'll catch you at the next briefing. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.